Somaliland looks and acts like a country, its own government, parliament, legal system, and regular democratic elections. For over 30 years, it's managed stability and order, a stark contrast to the turmoil in southern Somalia. Somaliland issues its own passports, flies its own flag, and runs its own affairs. This stability has attracted major partners, especially the United Arab Emirates. The UAE's investments, like the transformation of the port of Berbera by DP World, have turned Somaliland into a key trade and security hub. The UAE has also upgraded Berbera's airport and trained local security forces, deepening its influence. Despite this close partnership, the UAE stops short of granting Somaliland official recognition. Somaliland has proven itself a reliable partner, but the world, including the UAE, still withholds formal recognition. This paradox, deep engagement without recognition, defines Somaliland's place in modern geopolitics. Engagement and recognition are not the same in international relations. Engagement is practical. Countries work together on trade, security, and investment without making political commitments. The UAE's relationship with Somaliland is deep engagement, contracts, infrastructure, and security cooperation. This approach lets the UAE benefit from Somaliland's stability, while avoiding the legal and diplomatic consequences of formal recognition. Recognition, by contrast, is a formal act, with major legal and political consequences. Recognizing Somaliland would mean supporting Somalia's breakup, a step the UAE is unwilling to take. By engaging but not recognizing, the UAE enjoys economic and strategic rewards while avoiding diplomatic fallout. It maintains ties with Somalia and avoids encouraging other secessionist movements. This dual-track policy is pragmatic diplomacy, treating Somaliland like a state in practice, but not in name. For Somaliland, engagement brings investment and some legitimacy, but the lack of recognition keeps it locked out of the global system. The UAE maximizes its flexibility and power by operating in this gray area. Somaliland remains hopeful, but frustrated by its continued exclusion. The UAE's refusal to recognize Somaliland is a calculated strategy called strategic ambiguity. By keeping Somaliland's status unresolved, the UAE preserves its leverage and options. This ambiguity lets the UAE extract better deals. Somaliland, hoping for recognition, is more accommodating. The UAE can negotiate favorable terms for ports, security, and military bases, knowing Somaliland needs its support. Meanwhile, the UAE maintains ties with Somalia, presenting itself as a partner that respects territorial integrity. This balancing act allows the UAE to pursue interests across the region without committing to one side. Holding the promise of recognition keeps Somaliland compliant and dependent. The current ambiguity is not a temporary phase. It's the UAE's preferred state of affairs. It offers maximum benefit with minimal risk. For the UAE, ambiguity is the solution, not the problem. If the UAE recognized Somaliland, it would lose its biggest bargaining chip. A recognized Somaliland could join international bodies, access loans, and negotiate better deals, reducing its dependence on the UAE. The current flexible arrangements would become formal, binding treaties, limiting the UAE's ability to adapt. Recognition would shift power to Somaliland, letting it seek new partners, including UAE rivals. The UAE's leverage would evaporate, and its costs would rise. The promise of recognition is more valuable as a tool of influence than the act itself. By keeping recognition out of reach, the UAE ensures Somaliland remains a compliant partner. This secures the UAE's strategic and economic interests for the long term. The UAE is cautious, waiting to see how regional powers act before making bold moves. The African Union's policy against redrawing borders makes recognition risky. Ethiopia, needing access to the sea, is deeply invested in Somaliland's port. If Ethiopia recognizes Somaliland, it would give the UAE political cover to follow. The UAE avoids being the first mover, wary of backlash from Somalia and the African Union. Instead, it builds its presence in Somaliland while waiting for a shift in the diplomatic landscape. A change in Ethiopia, further chaos in Somalia, or a regional consensus could open the door. Until then, the UAE enjoys the benefits of partnership without the costs of recognition. It's a patient, risk-averse strategy. The UAE will act only when the regional environment makes recognition safe. A major security crisis in the Red Sea could force the UAE to act. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait is vital for global trade. any disruption would have global consequences. In a crisis, Somaliland's stability and strategic location would become indispensable. The port and airport at Berbera would be essential for protecting shipping lanes. In such a scenario, the UAE might recognize Somaliland out of necessity, not choice. Recognition would be framed as a security imperative, not a political statement. The transactional nature of UAE policy means ambiguity works in peacetime, but a crisis could make formal alliances necessary. If the Red Sea's security is threatened, the political map could change overnight. If the UAE ever recognizes Somaliland, it will demand a high price. Somaliland would likely have to grant the UAE exclusive rights at Berbera Port and a long-term military presence. This would give the UAE strategic control over the region and limit Somaliland's sovereignty. Economic concessions would follow, preferential access to resources and infrastructure projects for Emirati companies. Recognition would bring international legitimacy, but at the cost of economic independence. Somaliland's leaders would face a tough choice: remain unrecognized or accept a deal that locks them into the UAE's sphere. The final agreement would reflect the power imbalance between the two. Recognition would come with strings attached, a very high price for statehood. The UAE's decision on Somaliland is not about morality or justice. Somaliland's democratic achievements matter only as far as they serve UAE interests. The UAE's foreign policy is driven by power, security, and economic advantage. Ambiguity gives the UAE leverage and control. Recognition will only come if it serves its strategic goals. Somaliland cannot win recognition by appealing to fairness. It must make itself indispensable to the UAE. A regional crisis or a move by another major power could force the UAE's hand. Until then, Somaliland remains a pawn in a larger geopolitical game. The UAE will recognize Somaliland only when it strengthens its own position. Until that day, Somaliland waits.